Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing a kind of fun Politics 101 thing, I guess, and it's going to be analyzing the US Senate versus the US House of Representatives, what they do, how people get elected there, and just kind of a general overview. This was suggested by someone. So it's basically the US Senate versus the US House of Representatives explained, Politics 101. So, firstly, you need to understand how Washington works. So, Washington basically has three branches of government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. And today we'll be looking at the legislative branch, and that contains the House and the Senate. Um, both of these branches kind of try to find legislation, and it needs to pass both of them and then be signed by the president, who's in the executive branch. So that does mean that whoever controls the US House and Senate is a big deal. Most people, not all, but most, vote down party lines. What that means is that if you're a Democrat, you'll mostly vote with most of the Democrats, and if you're a Republican, you'll mostly vote with the Republicans. There are exceptions, but that's kind of the gist of it. So that does mean whoever controls the House and Senate is a big deal. Um, and as of right now, the Democrats control the House. Sorry about that, but the Republicans control the Senate, and there's a Republican in the White House. A bit less easy for Trump to pass legislation because of the Democratic House standing in his way. Now, firstly, the Senate, the basics of the Senate. So it's made up of 100 senators, and there's 2 senators per state, and regardless of populations. And there are members of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and 2 independents, but they both caucus with the Democratic Party, which means they both vote with the Democratic Party. So they're basically those 2 independents are basically Democrats. Now, every 2 years, so in 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, etc., 1/3 of the Senate is up for election. So this year, there were 33 senators who were up for election, and that's except for special elections, and I'll do more on this later. And that does mean that senators served 6-year terms, because only 1/3 of the Senate is up. So as you can see here, in 2018, this is kind of the senators that were up this year. All of these senators and all these senators were not up for re-election, and then these senators that I've highlighted right here were up for re-election. Right. So the Senate, what does it do? It has a few abilities. These aren't the only abilities, but I've just put down a few notable ones. Impeachment. This is for removing members in the judicial and legislative and the executive branch. I forgot to put it in there. All 3 branches of government can be impeached. For this to pass, it needs to pass with at least 2/3 of the Senate. So at least 2/3 of the Senate. By the way, the latest president to get impeached was Bill Clinton in 1998, but it didn't pass with 2/3, so he wasn't able to get impeached. Now, for the nominations, this is to nominate cabinet members for the legislative branch's administration, and a simple majority is required, and then of course passing laws, which is a simple majority is required. Now, Senate, how do the elections work? The Senate has 1/3 of its members, as I said earlier. So, for example, one senator would be up in 2000, 2006, 2012, 2018, etc. And then the same 2002, 2008, 2014, and then also, of course, 2004, 2010, and 2016. So that's basically kind of it. And in the media, there's a lot of talk whether a map is good or bad for either party. Now, you might be confused about that, but what they're talking about is how many seats each party has up for election, because sometimes it's not very fair to one party or the other. For example, in 2018, 1/3 of the Senate that was up was overwhelmingly Democratic. That means that Democrats were defending so many seats, and Republicans had so many opportunities to snatch Democratic seats, whereas Democrats didn't have many opportunities to snatch Republican seats. Speaking of that, there were 26 Democrats that were up compared to just 7 Republicans. So that means that Republicans have a lot more opportunities to snatch Democratic seats than the other way around. Now, in addition to this, Democrats were defending 10 seats in states that the Republicans won in 2016. So that means that they're defending seats in red states, in Republican states. So that outright means that they're spending all their money in these red states and they have almost no opportunities to pick up for pickups. I believe this year they picked up 2 Senate seats in Nevada and Arizona. A few others were competitive. Those were the states of Tennessee and Texas and Mississippi. I believe those 3 were competitive and yeah, but they couldn't pick those ones up. Now, some people talk about these special elections. So they're basically elections that are special. There was a special election last year in 2017 for a Senate seat in Alabama, and because the former senator was appointed by the legislative branch, a special election was scheduled, and the seat was filled by Democrat Doug Jones. This was kind of an upset that he was running against a weak Republican opponent in Roy Moore. And then 2 more Senate elections, special elections happened out on the actual cycle on the actual 2018 election. Both of these were to fill the remainder of one's term for someone who has retired. Senate, in conclusion, many jobs, very important for a branch, but again, it cannot be too fair for one side, given it. I didn't mention this, but the Republicans had so many seats up in 2016, giving Democrats opportunity for pickups, and then the same thing on the other way around in 2018. Now, the House of Representatives. Here are the basics of the House. It's made up of 435 representatives. These are Congress people. I'm going to need to wrap this up soon. And every 2 years, each and every representative is up. They serve 2-year terms, and then those are all the different representatives. There's a few things that the House of Representatives can do: impeachment, breaking laws, many others I didn't list there, and also breaking a tie in the Electoral College, which I'll link to a video that I made down in the description for more information on that. Now, the House of Representatives, how the elections work. 435 members are up for election every 2 years, but most of these aren't competitive, so one candidate is also certain to win there. 60 seats are actually competitive, and these decide the control. I've just listed a few districts, but there are many, many more, because these are competitive because they have about the same number of Democrats and Republicans, so that means they're pretty competitive. However, a district can be competitive due to a candidate quality. Democrats ran a strong candidate in West Virginia 3, Wisconsin 1, New York 11, and the Texas Senate race. Oh, and one more thing there for the Georgia governor race. That's actually in the executive branch, I believe, maybe not. For the governorship, but I'm really bad at that kind of thing. But speakership. So this is the leader of the House of Representatives, and to win, you need to win 2 votes. So for the first one is an internal party vote, and so one needs to win most of the votes in her caucus, his or her caucus, and it's kind of like a primary. If you're running for president, you need to pass the primary, and then assuming you win that, you move on to the House floor vote. And to win this vote, you must win the majority of the votes cast for Speaker. So that means get more than the Republican in this case, who is Kevin McCarthy. And then once you win both of those, you are the Speaker of the House, which, by the way, is 3rd in line to the President. So it goes President, Vice President, and Speaker of the House. Special elections, I'm not going to go through this as I already went through it for the Senate side, but few high-profile races. These are, once again, to fill the term of someone. So there were 3 big ones that went on. that kind of gained national attention. Ohio 12, between Danny O'Connor, the Democrat, and Trey Balderson, the Republican. The 18th District of Pennsylvania, between Connor Lamb, the Democrat, and Rick Saccone, the Republican. And the Montana at-large district between Rob Quist, the Democrat, and Greg Gianforte, the Republican. Just for your reference, Ohio 12 and Pennsylvania 18 both went to the Democrats, and then Montana at-large went to the Republicans. One more thing for the House of Representatives, gerrymandering, and it's a concept used by politicians to get their party to win more House seats, but not getting any voters to come to their side. So in North Carolina, they actually have a new map now, but in 2014 this was the map they used. If you look, there were 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats, so you probably would think, well, look at that, the Republicans have a big majority in North Carolina, but actually it's a swing state, and it got about the same amount of votes for either side, but it was because of how the districts were drawn, right? If you look at this one, it's carved out so that all the Democrats are jammed into 1, 2, 3 districts, right? They're all packed, and you pack the districts, and then what you do with the rest of them, you spread out your Republican voters in the rest of them so that they have about a 55 to 60% vote majority. But here in these Democratic districts, there's like a 90%, 80% vote majority, because you're packing all these Democratic voters in these, and you're spreading your Republican voters out. Now, in gerrymandering in Massachusetts, all these districts were Democratic. Oh, by the way, the unconstitutional one, once again, was for the North Carolina district. Massachusetts, of course, a Democratic advantage, not a 9-0 Democratic advantage, though. And this was gerrymandered by the Democratic House and the Democratic Senate. So, in conclusion, very important branch of government, and it has many powers, and yeah, it's a very important branch of government. And thank you for watching. I need to go now, so I will go now. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I'll see you all in the next one.